somewhere who you are, the trauma, the happiness, the person that you are, the personalities that shaped you, all of that is so deeply sown in our upbringing, in our childhood.
Incredible.
Like if you ask me, what was your best memory of your childhood? Was it a birthday party or holiday or whatever? It was just that Marine Drive walk and my father and me holding hands. To me, it just kind of sums up. In one of my talks, I had this 20-year-old who had come and he said, I hate my parents. I said, just forgive them and let it go because they didn't know better. They wanted the best for you. It just didn't pan out that way. He wrote to me 3 months later on Instagram and he said, ma'am, I went for a walk with my father today and I cannot tell you how happy that made me. He said, after I finished that walk, I cried because I did not know where did this anger, this frustration, this hate towards my father come from, because he had no idea I was going through so much.
So how have you seen parenting evolve over the last 15 years?
We're this sandwich generation. We are constantly being bombarded with foreign information, and there's big tradition, culture, your parents telling you to parent a certain way.
Right.
And I have this khichdi in my head, like what is it supposed to be?
Yeah, what's right?
What's right, what's not?
My son just turned 13, so we're entering into that crazy period of teenage. And I'm super confused now about what to believe. I open Instagram or there are 15 different points of views coming at me. How do you make sense of it?
Parents are finding it harder and harder because of the amount of choices, right? Time is becoming a scarce resource and aspirations are rising. Somebody has to suffer in the bargain, right?
Yep.
And this is again something my dad said, that if they're stuck at a road, at an intersection which goes wrong and right, if your voice plays in their head and this is not okay and you turn the right path, then you're amazing. Your children may never come back and even tell you that this happened. So prioritize your children, prioritize your family. Don't think you have forever, especially today because life is random, life is fragile, and you don't have time. You just don't have enough time with that. I am the first mom on a dad podcast.
Mansi, welcome to Dad Sense.
Thank
What
you.
are you doing in a dad podcast?
Yeah, I'm so honored. I am the first mom on a dad podcast. And I am.
You are.
And you couldn't have had a better choice.
I agree.
Yeah.
Which is why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
And I've been thinking about, obviously I've been interviewing dads in the last 1.5 years.
How different is it?
We'll find out.
We'll find out towards the end of the...
But there's a reason why I thought having someone like you would be cool. For many reasons, actually. But to start with, it's always important to have a mom's perspective on
dads.
On dad. I mean, we live that.
On dads or parenting?
Both. We live that all day long, right?
Yeah.
All year long. Like moms and dads are always working together.
Yeah.
And I've been getting a lot of perspectives from dads about dads.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be refreshing to have the same perspective
Looking
from moms.
forward.
Yeah. So before I go, I just want to also, I know you got shocked by looking at my mustache. This is a month of November, so please bear with me. I'm supporting men's health. We'll talk about men's health as well this month.
Absolutely.
But let's start by going into your childhood.
Yeah.
Right? I know we are moms and dads now, but we were kids. So describe your childhood. Let's start there.
I'm so glad that you're asking this question, Shubhashish, because somewhere who you are and the childhood that you've had is what reflects in your adulthood. Right? The trauma, the happiness, the person that you are, the personalities that shaped you, the inspirations, the memories, the triggers, all of that is so deeply sown in our upbringing, in our childhood.
Exactly.
And who we are is the product of that. I mean, that is also the premise of my book, right? The Parents I Met, which is how did these children who've been outliers in their own space have a different childhood, or what did their parents do along the way that they became outliers? Because everybody speaks about, you as a person today.
Correct.
Nobody speaks about how you were
got
and
there.
what was that journey to becoming who you are today.
Yep.
Who is this successful person? Everybody wants to know this successful person today, but you do not become an outlier or a path breaker or a successful person in your own stream, in your own field, in your own ways without that journey. Those
Yep.
are the building blocks that have made you the person you are today.
I'm so glad you're sharing it, because that is exactly the premise in which I
Right.
start with the childhood, and because we just like not just bigger
Absolutely.
people, but everything that we have inside us is shaped right from where you're born and how
And
you.
even the parent you will become
Yep.
is sown into your childhood,
Yep.
right? So much so that, you want, like, I know so many people who say, if I'm half as good as my mom, I know I'm a good parent,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So it's very important that you've had a great childhood, or if you've not had a great childhood, you deal with that much early
How do
on
you
before
deeply-
you become a parent,
Yeah.
because you don't want to pass that trauma onto your child or those triggers back onto your child. So it's very important to address that. Coming to my childhood was, I'm one of four. I'm the youngest one. So I got away with murder most of the times.
I hear that. I'm one of four too, but I'm the third one.
I didn't know that. But I got away with murder most of the times. I did not have to pave paths for late night permissions and doing masti and outdoor trips and everything.
It was in Bombay, yeah?
Yeah, everything's in Bombay, born and brought up here. And so I literally didn't have to do any of that. It was all done. But between my sisters and me, there was we are 11 years apart. So in many ways I had to, but in many ways I didn't have to.
Yeah.
But the youngest child also needs to bear the burden of the most successful elder child, who's extremely disciplined, who's extremely good, very
Responsible.
hardworking, responsible, and the list goes on. So you also bear that. But I had a very protected, very comfortable, and by comfortable I don't mean abundant, but comfortable,
Sure.
very secure, and my parents made a lot of time for me. So while my mom was working and she was doing a whole bunch of things, and we lived in a joint family system, my sister was kind of took charge of shaping who I am today. My dad could spare only a Sunday, but that Sunday 1 hour meant the world to me. It meant simple things like a walk on Marine Drive, or going horse riding every Sunday, which was our ritual.
That's
or it could just be
beautiful.
a close by park.
But
But
your dad would do that every Sunday?
every single Sunday.
That's incredible.
Like, if you ask me what was your best memory of your childhood, was it a birthday party or holiday or whatever, it was just that Marine Drive walk and my father and me holding hands. To me, it just kind of sums up.
Yeah.
Another shared passion, which was every summer holiday, he had a plan of where we're going to go. His love for photography and travel is something that I didn't even know I had it in me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It just slowly
Until I could, spend money on booking a trip on my own. I didn't know that I was so passionate about traveling. I didn't know I was so passionate about photography until, I quit my job, and just before I was supposed to start Kids Stop Press, and I was like, okay, the one thing I'm going to do is buy a camera now because I can afford it. And I bought a DSLR, I bought a Canon, I was shooting images. Every trip I would take and the iPhones had just about come in, but I was still shooting on the DSLR. And I didn't realize he never spoke about it, he just demonstrated it. I didn't know I was picking up these qualities subliminally.
That's exactly what happens, right?
And my mom was a very overpowering personality, and for the longest time I thought that she's my role model and she's the one I'm going to be like. And she was ambitious and all of that. And my dad was very calm. He would say less, do more. And just
Was he more introverted as well?
he was, but
Yeah.
he would be. He was a very family person. He would go out of his way to do things for people. And for a very long time, I think up until I was probably in my 30s, I didn't realize that my dad has a much stronger influence on me than my mom.
Right.
Like, maybe my discipline comes from my mom, but my ethics, my work ethics, my the way I deal with people, the way I deal with family is so much from my dad.
Yep.
Because I think they're the unsung heroes in a very well orchestrated band.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that's literally hits home the point of why it's important to shine a light on fatherhood, right?
Oh, totally.
And the role that fathers play. Thanks for sharing. Now let's move to you becoming a parent.
Yes.
And how did you and your husband, how did you guys sort of decide to have a family? What was the conversation, and what was the journey like in the initial years?
Right. So I think both my husband and I, we were very keen. We were very sure that we both wanted to have a family.
Yeah.
I was very keen to have it very early on. So I became a mom at 27. And I think it was a very conscious decision because, by the time I was in my late 20s, I had seen already a lot of people around. We were amongst first ones amongst our friends to actually have,
Wow.
to start a family. And I don't think we didn't overthink it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, we'll lose this, we'll have to let go of freedom, or we'll have to let go of this, or any of that. Because to by then, I had seen so many people around me not being able to conceive.
Got it.
That to me, it just seemed like, I don't want to go through this. And I had seen it very up close and personal. And I was like, I don't want to go through this. And I think, and everybody can have children at whatever age they want, whether they want to have, they don't want to have, that's absolutely okay. But if you've decided that you want to have kids early on, my only advice would be that just have them early, because especially for women, because you and you alone are going to go through that trauma, and your body alone is going to go through that trauma of not being able to conceive. And no matter how strong an ally you have in your spouse,
in your life partner or husband,
he's not going to be able to feel even an inch of that pain that you're going to go through every single cycle.
True.
So
we had late children.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, because Vinny, my wife, she went through some real trying times for both our children. I mean, not the process of birthing, but I'm talking about like the way the body behaves and what you experience. Even though I didn't experience, but being with her, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So no matter how supportive your partner is, it is you alone who has to go through this. I was very clear. I didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to put my body through that. And more often than not, people just often feel like, oh, I'm extremely fit and mujhe kuch nahi hoga and everything will be fine.
Right.
But we don't realize that life is random.
We don't control. Yeah.
Right? You don't have control over 99% of things that are happening. So I think it was an early call that we took, that we both wanted to have.
And how was he? Like, was he cool? Like, he said, we're on the same page?
Yeah, he was. I think, like I said, I think we were just so young that we at that point in time didn't overthink it. And because he and his mom share an amazing bond, they're just 20 years apart.
Got it.
So I think he also understood, like, it's so chill to have a mom who's only 20 years apart, right?
Right.
And the bond that he and his mom share is so amazing. And then he saw...
So again, childhood and his
so he was like, okay, this is how I want to be with my kids. And like it or not, you are going to, subtly take those signals in.
Yep.
So he was possibly thinking that, the way he was with his parents, because it was also chill, that's how he will be with his kids because of the shrinking age gap.
Yep.
So we didn't overthink it. We were cool. We were lucky and fortunate that we had our children in close succession, one at 27, the other at 30. We were done. And also just from a career point, you're at that mid-management level where a gap of 1 year, especially for the woman, a gap of 6 months or 1 year is not going to create too much of a dent in your career.
Yeah.
So you feel it's okay. If you're at the very top, then you feel like, oh my God.
It's going to put a dent on my career.
Yeah, you're going to start overthinking that process.
True.
So I think because we were in that space, I think it became much easier for us. And I just think we were just very young kids. So we
That's
didn't.
great.
I think sometimes not overthinking helps.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just a blessing, right?
Yeah.
How did he embrace the role? Like, I know being a dad, it's like being thrown into a complete uncharted territory. I'm sure he felt a little bit of that. But how did you kind of work through that, and how did he warm up to the role of being a dad?
It's so funny if I tell you this, because I don't think he felt detached to the process. In fact, in our relationship, I call him the mother and I'm the father, because I'm more chill. Yeah. I'm more chilled. I am more detached. Yeah. He'll stay up. He'll worry more. He's literally the more easy one. I'm the tougher one. So he's very hands-on.
Got it.
Like he may not be able to be around as much because his work requires him to travel, but before he boards a flight, before he takes off, before he comes home, anything, he is just there. Like I know for a fact that, if I am in a meeting and sometimes, I cannot answer my phone, especially when I'm in recordings and shoots and stuff like that, the kids will always call him. Like even if he's that cool dad that he's sitting in Tokyo and ordering food color because my daughter wants to bake a cake. So he'll order on Zepto and he's like, okay, it's coming in 10 minutes. So I don't think that Knuckles, he took it to like fish takes to water, right?
Yeah.
He just held the baby in his hands, and I was literally only doing nursing and sleeping.
That's
right?
Wonderful.
He's like, I can clean the pee, I can't do the poo, so you can do that. But I think over time he possibly got done with it. By the time the second one, he was like, okay, I can do everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was about him that he just embraced it very, very beautifully. He didn't feel like, and mind you, he used to travel, especially with my elder one. He was 6 to 8 months away because he was also, in an assignment abroad. And so he didn't even have that insecurity that, oh my God, my child is not seeing me as much.
Yeah.
What he knew is that I need to work harder because I'm away for longer.
That's fascinating, because there's a lot of dad guilt, right? Or mom guilt. But, typically when dads are away a lot.
The time that he was here, he would just make it up. And he's like, I've lost out on this, few months and I want to make it up. But he made it up so effortlessly that it didn't even feel like effort.
Did you see any struggle in him, or did he share any struggles?
No.
Got it.
No struggles, no insecurities.
Yeah.
No like wanting to overcompensate. Overindulge.
Yeah.
None. Like, okay,
That's
maybe
incredible.
Indulge, yes.
A little bit, yeah.
But that's between us as parents. I'm the less indulgent one. He's the more indulgent one. But not one. And I find that so strange that when I see moms take that step back, or they're away for longer periods, or they're not around, they want to compensate. They feel insecure, they feel mom guilt so strongly, they become extremely indulgent as well. So I just feel like I've seen both sides of it.
Have you chatted, like have you wondered, like I know we will talk about your work in the parenting space.
Yeah.
Have you chatted with him? Have you looked at it from the lens of like an outside observer? How did he manage those emotions and sort of grapple and then overcome them?
As a family, we chat a lot, and we have a lot of conversations. But I don't think that there was ever a dialogue on him trying to make this work. I think we're both very action oriented, and what I mean by that is, okay, this is the problem. So what next? What are we going to do about it? We get into the action mode instead of, just brewing on the problem or just being there for a very long time, right? Okay, what are we going to do about it? Like, what do we do next?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, this hai to hai.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we've never discussed it or chatted about it, but I think we both knew. We've, for that matter, we've never even had, this is your job and this is my job. Like, like this concept of equal parenting or whatever, that sort of never came about as a discussion point. Because we said, let's operate by skills, skill strengths, right? Like what are our skills, what are we better at doing? And it just works like magic. Even such a simple thing, right? And I was just thinking this morning, because I was kind of in that zone of, okay, I need to record this today.
Right.
And I left, the kids take the bus typically at 7:30, and he's away and he's boarding a flight and he's already at the airport, and I have my gym class starting at 7:15, and he knew I would have exited the house, so he called the kids at 7:20, have you guys left? Because mom must be in class, so he just wanted to make sure that they don't miss the bus. I didn't ask him to do it.
Right.
But it just came so intuitively to him that, okay, Mansi must be in class. And then, I called the kids back that, hey, have you guys left? She's like, Mom, Dad already called. What is up with you guys?
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, how can two people be so in sync?
Yeah.
Right? And really, there's been no dialogue. But I think where this comes from is because we have shared calendars. There's a process to the madness, right?
Yes.
There are shared calendars. Our kids know who's away at what time. So even if they've hurt themselves in school, once my daughter was really sick and she said, she went to the nurse and the nurse was about to call me and she said, please do not call my mom. My mom's in a shoot. Can you call my father? Or my mom's away, in a different time zone or something.
Yeah.
Can you call my dad? He'll come and pick me up. So I think having
Gotten
that,
used to the rhythm
they've
and
gotten used
the mechanics.
to the rhythm.
Yeah.
They know, and we discuss our days, okay? So dad's here, he's going to come home at this time, mom's here, our calendars are shared, they know what hour they can call which parent.
Did it take like an evolution though? Like it must have started in some chaos, like this method in madness,
Oh
like
yeah,
you said, right?
I'm sure
Yeah,
there
yeah.
must be teething problems or whatever.
I'm just trying to think about other dads and moms listening or watching this and wondering, okay, this seems to have worked really well. What do
Yeah.
I take away? How do I
Just
what do I
start
take away from
really early on.
that? Yeah.
And like we have our calendars and days that we discussed the previous night, the previous week, they're so ingrained in the work that we do.
Yeah.
Like, if Nakul's traveling, okay, where are you traveling? What are you doing? Why are
It's
you
almost like
going there?
forced to do this, otherwise it'll be just chaos,
Yeah,
right? Like
and I
because of
think-
both of your work.
Yeah, and I think it's very important because they also want to share what's their day looking like, right? Like, oh, I have this and then I have this. So, we're like, oh, that's interesting, right?
They as in like
The kids, right? So they want to be like, oh, I have a really hectic day today and then I have this class and I have this class. So they're almost a party to that process.
Right.
And we're like, oh my God, you got a busy day.
Yeah.
And then we say, how was your day today, right?
Yeah.
Like, what really happened? What was the highlight? What did you love doing? And I think they've just gotten so used to that scope,
Sure.
right? That
Yeah.
it kind of makes it a very seamless process now.
So start early on, yeah, that's definitely.
Start very early on.
Even me and my wife, we're still not there. I mean, we're still pretty crazy about
Google
this. A lot of
Calendar
times-
it is.
A lot of times forget about stuff, but this is good to know. Sorry. Thanks for sharing. So let's flip a little bit to your work side, which is also in parenting, and it's fascinating to me how you have managed to be this voice and have this journey over the last 15 years, kind of growing and evolving parenting community around this country, which is incredibly inspiring. But what inspired you to get into this space?
So I've always had a career in marketing, communications, digital. And when I had my first child, that's the time I realized that being a full-time parent, you are going to spend a lot of your time in front of it. Increasingly,
Yep.
this was back in 2008, you are going to spend a lot of your time in front of a digital device. I used to travel 10 kilometers, not looking up at billboards, reading magazine, but being on my BlackBerry Messenger, coordinating work, seeing things, spending time on Facebook. And that, to me, was, and like Oprah says, life gives you 3 whispers. To me, that was the first whisper. The second was not knowing what to do with my child in a city like Mumbai. And, even if you want to go to the zoo, you don't know what days to go, what time is it open, is it even worth going?
Right.
Like back in the day in 2008 when I took my child, I think there was 1 elephant and 1 leopard or 1 tiger or lion, or I don't even remember what it was, but there was nothing. And it was like a very depressing state of affairs.
Right.
And I was like, koi kyun jayega idhar?
Yeah.
Right? So not knowing what to do in the city.
As a young mom.
as a young mom, and the other parents wouldn't share with you.
Right.
Right? Like when I told people the whole idea of I wanted to do this, they're like, are you serious? You're going to share what you do with your child? Because that's supposed to be like top secret. And I was like, okay, I didn't even know that. And the third was, I just knew in my career that, your titles keep changing, but effectively you're doing the same job. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who are in the corporate space would get really upset about this.
Offended by this.
I think I was done. I didn't think... And I was in a great space because retail was just about evolving.
And advertising.
And advertising. So it was, and communications and research and consumer understanding was really evolving. And I could have been in the best space, but I think when you know that your calling is very different. And the third bit was, we're this sandwich generation, I call it that, where we are constantly being bombarded with foreign information.
Mm-hmm.
And our parents are telling...
tradition.
Yes, yeah. and there's big tradition, culture, your parents telling you to parent a certain way.
Right.
And I had this khichdi in my head, like what is it supposed to be?
Yeah, what's right?
What's right, what's not. And I think as Indians, we don't want to leave our roots, right? Because that's what we take great pride in. And I do most definitely. And I was like, okay, there has to be an alternate path to doing this.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, where do I get this? And I was like, okay, let me just build it. And I took a 6-month break. I went with my 2.5-year-old to the US. I traveled to different cities with her. People thought I was crazy.
So you said, I want to do something about these whispers.
Yes. At that point in time, these were just whispers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm done with this corporate life. Let me just take a break.
Right.
And my boss was like, I can't let you go. So I was like, okay, let me go for 3 months and we'll figure. And he's like, okay, and you work from this. I said, oh, perfect. I have no money, so this is great. And I would just work that timing and chill in the US because I also
that's
had
pretty cool. Knowing like that's becoming more norm now. Back in 2000.
Yeah, 2008. So 2012, 11.
Right.
And I was doing that, and every city I would go, I would just figure out what to do with my daughter. And I was like, okay, today we feel like strawberry picking. Let's go strawberry picking. Today we want to go to indoor play areas. Let's go to an indoor play. Today we want to do this. Let's go do this. So it just, I just felt so liberated as a parent and empowered. I was like, I have to come back and create this.
Fascinating.
So I just combined all those 3 insights, and that's what it became. It became my voice where I said, I have to start this. I knew it had to be digital. And I knew that it would also allow me to buy my hours and spend my hours the way I wanted to be in command of my time. I think that's what drives entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think this is something. I've been thinking about this, right? To your point on one of your friends said, do you want to share this stuff with others? So there's something about people who go on this journey, right? Being an entrepreneur, creating something. I mean, part of it is self-motivated, like your need to have convenience.
Yeah.
But there's a part of it which is also about giving.
Yeah.
About sharing. Like everyone goes through the journey, or everyone has a difficulty, experiences a problem, and they want to solve for themselves. But the next part is they want to help others solve it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the interesting part. Like you wanted to share that for other parents.
Yes.
Do you think that came from like your mom or dad? Like not everyone thinks like that. Like you might have wanted to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Where did that come from to create this community? I'm sure it was not just a business idea.
No, it wasn't. But I think, I think very few people, and we're a few lucky ones, who can solve for a problem and share it in a way that people can understand and consume.
Right.
So we should really take great pride for everyone who's creating some form of or problem solving in this fashion. I think you should take great pride in it. And maybe I think that ability, see, people who share are also highly opinionated people.
Sure.
So I think you have a point of view.
Yep.
And you want to share that. So I think, I don't know where it came from, whether it was my parents or it wasn't, but I think it came from a place of selflessness. And it came from a position not of only selflessness, but also to selflessly empower people, right? Because I know that feeling of how I felt with my child, and I was like, how can others not feel that? Because I knew the pain of a working parent.
Right.
I think maybe that was the problem that I was trying to solve all along the way, of not knowing, of feeling very left out. Because people wouldn't share information, everything was available outside school corridors, which I wasn't frequenting. And I think I also knew very early on, whether it was just simple things like making it to my prenatal class and juggling. So I would reach work at 8:30, take a break from 10 to 11, go attend the class, come back to work. So, I knew my life and my path was more difficult than the others. Right? And if not difficult, at least different. So I think having gone through that, I would want, and I know the result of that difficulty, because I knew how easy labor was and how normal the delivery was. So I wanted other people to experience, but if they didn't, they would go through so much of pain and suffering. So I think it came from,
Got it.
I don't know where it came from.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting, because I know that not everybody would feel like that. So I'm so grateful that you did that, and you've gone on this journey, which we'll talk about now. So how have you seen parenting evolve over the last 15 years, right? You go and, meet, talk to, watch people. I know it's a very big question and there are many layers to it. How have you seen this parenting space evolve? And also, what are some of the things that you feel like you have been able to contribute to this space?
So I'll be very honest. The journey of the last almost 11 years has been that of my evolution along with the space evolving, right? So when I started, people thought I was nuts. People thought this was like a hobby business or like a side hustle, or they thought it was need for attention, or like, what are you doing? Okay, it's a lifestyle business, that's great, you can live it for a while, and etc. But I think what I have, over this period of 11 years, I think what has happened is people have understood, and speaking to now, Kidstar Press as a platform connects to over, our digital reach month on month is close to about 25 million. We have close to 1 million followers across, 1 million followers across YouTube, Instagram, our website, newsletter, WhatsApp, speaking and coaching over, I think, 15,000 plus parents, writing the book in the process. I think it's all been part of an evolution where you understand that the parent, why do things get complex? Things get complex when you have the paradox of choice, right? Our choices have increased. So the parent is far more confused, or that's why decision making gets more complicated.
You're talking about back in the day when you only had two sources. One was information coming from somewhere, and you.
I just we were all referring to the baby centers of the world, and that didn't make sense, because they were like, okay, let your child cry it out through the night and whatever. And here in Bombay, you possibly back in the day didn't even have a separate room for your child, right? A parent and child.
So you couldn't follow baby center.
Yeah, so it just seemed very alien, because my mom would never let my child cry it out through the night, and I'm trying to tell my mom, okay, I'm going to be the parent who's going to be in the driving seat, and my baby center is going to tell me, let your mother be, and they don't even understand that we live together, right? So my point would be that who's driving this, right? So I think that evolution has been tremendous, where you understand that you are evolving. Why is it getting so difficult for parents today? Because of increasing choices. The second part is that parents are finding it harder and harder because of the amount of choices, right? So therefore time is becoming a scarce resource. If time is becoming a scarce resource and aspirations are rising, somebody has to suffer in the bargain, right? You're paying a price for everything. There is a price for everything. How much of the price are you ready to pay is the question I ask to parents. How is it evolving? I see a little bit of disconnect between parents and children today. I see a lot of it is a little bit of external validation that's come into play. I feel the the conversations between four walls and, the conversations that had boundaries seem to be blurring because everything's up for social consumption.
Yep.
It could be on social media, or it could be, with friends or anybody you're discussing. Those boundaries are blurring.
Blurred, yeah.
Right? And I think the biggest part of it is the essence of time and conversations, because parents are getting strapped for time.
And the choices, right? Like
the choices.
Me as a dad, my son just turned 13, so we're entering into that crazy period of teenage. And I'm super confused now about what to believe, where to go, because I open Instagram or whatever, there are 15 different points of views coming at me.
Yeah.
Do this with your teenager. 30 minutes later, somebody's saying exactly the opposite. Do that with your teenager.
Yeah.
And everyone's a talking head.
Yeah.
Everyone's an expert, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sense of it? So I think your point of choices.
Yeah.
Too many choices is actually bad, right?
Yeah.
And
it is the paradox of choice that is kind of confusing us. Like, look at our parents. They didn't think like, अच्छा ये school में भेजना है IB, IGCSE, state board, CBSE, whatever. They said, this is our school. This is the closest. इसकी fees हम afford कर पाते हैं. हम इधर ही भेज. Like literally, my school was like in my building compound, and I went to only that school.
Right.
Not saying that is the right or wrong, but they didn't. And I keep telling this to a lot of kids who are, going through a lot of their childhood trauma. Say, forgive your parents because they didn't know any better.
True.
Right? Like I know in one of my talks, I had this 20-year-old who had come, and he's like, and everybody was asking me questions, that I wanted to ask him a question, that why are you here? And he said, I hate my parents, and for whatever reasons. And I said, just forgive them and let it go, because they didn't know better. They wanted the best for you.
Yep.
They had your interest at the best of their heart, but it just didn't pan out that way. So forgive them and let them go. And it was so surprising. 3 months later, he actually wrote to me on Instagram. I didn't even know his name. And, and I just gave him 1 or 2 tools of letting it go. And he wrote to me 3 months later on Instagram, and he said, ma'am, I went for a walk with my father today, and I cannot tell you how happy that made me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I was like, and I said, how did that make you feel? He said, I cried and cried and cried. Not in front of his dad, though.
Yeah.
He said, after I finished that walk, I cried because I did not know, where did this anger, this frustration, this hate towards my father come from? Because he had no idea I was going through so much. And I had no idea that he didn't even know or did not even have that intention that I was holding against him. And he's like, I am so grateful to you. And to me, that was...
It's fascinating, yeah.
It's fascinating how...
This story touched a chord in me, because I literally have spent, I guess, 75% of my time being very mad with my dad. I was mad, like this gentleman. Because why did he do this? Why did he not let me do this? Just a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to process. Until you become a dad, right? And when your son or your daughter looks at him like saying, Daddy, I hate you. Like, wow.
Yeah.
This is it. Like, you thought you were being a better dad.
Yeah.
And this is it. And now I could reflect and internalize why I was angry with my dad. And then you realize that I'm doing my best for this child.
Yeah.
And she's telling me I hate you. So therefore, where is my anger? And what does it mean? So like this gentleman, it's incredible.
Yeah. But let me tell you life truth.
Yeah.
If you've never been hated by your kids, you've not
There's
been a good
something wrong,
parent.
right?
You've not been a good parent. Your kids have to hate you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you do the nastiest things.
Right.
But you have to understand that there are 30 years between you and them. You're never going to be them.
No.
And that's the one that shreds you into pieces. That, they're not going to get you. And they're not, but how do you match them? Then?
Well, yeah, let's how do you do it? What's your principle? Because there's no rule. You just can apply some framework, some principle, right?
So
of keeping things sane.
I think the biggest learning for me, I have to sum it up, that has kind of changed me. And again, I was reflecting while you were talking right now that I think very few people and maybe that came to me very early on, realize a path of consciousness of where they are, who they are, and where are they going. Right? To me, it came very early on, and therefore I could be a more present parent. Like when I would take my child even down to the park, I would not even carry my phone because I wanted to be, and maybe that's a alpha working mom, I wanted to be in that moment. I would work, I would be down with her in the park 5 to 7 doing nothing, and then again go back work because I was part of a global company, and I would go back and work 7 to 8:30 while...
This was even before you started your...
Even before I started.
Yeah.
And for me, being in that moment and just knowing that, you know, with who you are, and that moment is never going to come back.
Yeah.
So just give it your 200%. So I think I was applying it back then, not even knowing that it was called conscious parenting.
Sure.
Just the consciousness came to me much earlier on. And therefore, every part of life kind of drives you to be to your next.
So now it's a different stage now.
Now it's a different stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there was one part of me that led me to be the parent I am today, or led me to be the professional that I am today, there are so many parts, right? My children, my path of embracing yoga, my part of being in this consciousness state, being more with people who are more grounding. You're never this one factor and this makes me.
Right.
You're a sum of so many things, right? So if I have to say, how did I bridge this gap into being, I mean, I want to believe that I'm a cool parent. And I feel like I want to believe that my children love me. But I think the way I look at it, and this is again something my dad said, that he said, you're never going to be loved by your children. But if they're stuck at a road, you know, at an intersection which goes wrong and right, and they think of you and they'll turn right, you've done...
That's it, you've done your job.
One is if they think of you, big win. Second is if your voice plays in their head and you know this is not okay and you turn the right path, then you're amazing. Your children may never come back and even tell you that this happened.
Yeah. They probably were not even conscious of it.
They're not even aware or conscious of it.
Yeah.
And they're going to be faced with
so many of these
crossroads, right?
Yeah.
And he said, my job, and I continue to say this to all the parents, your job is to make yourself redundant. But a parent is so deeply connected. See, what happens is, right, this whole journey of being a conscious parent is, parenting is a power play. I am here, you are here as a child, right? मेरा आपके ऊपर authority है. That makes me feel in control. Now, if that is happening, I will never let you get independent. Right?
Which is exactly the opposite of what you should be doing, working on.
Which is the opposite of what you should be doing, because my role as a parent
to get away
is to make sure that you need me less and less and less, because I have been the chosen one to just bring you into life and nurture you so you can pursue your own life. But parents will never do that. They will continue this power struggle because that means I will be in control. Control makes me feel good as a human being.
Absolutely. Now that, I think the parents are in a continuum of that realization and understanding, right? Maybe some parents absolutely don't know that. I would say a lot of parents intellectually know that, right? And then a few parents actually know that and practice that and are very, very okay with that. I think that journey of intellectually knowing, because a lot of parents will say, I know that I need to get out of the way.
Yeah, and some will keep having this rubber band effect.
Right.
Which means, I don't want to be there, but okay, I'm going to come back.
Right.
I don't want to be there, but I want to come back. Okay, let me know what's happening in your life. Okay, so you're constantly doing that. What my approach is, and which is very, very simple, is we are here.
Mm-hmm.
I am an individual, you're an individual. Just because I have more years of experience does not mean I dominate you. Does not mean I have authority over you. It means we're equals. And when you're equal, you have respect.
Yes.
You shed the ego and you don't operate out of ego. 99% of the time, parents are operating out of a space of ego.
I do
How
all the
can
time.
you talk to me like this?
Right.
That hurt.
Yeah.
But 99% of the time, you're talking back at your child in a way that he or she doesn't like. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's stop this hypocrisy, right?
Right.
And how many times have you gone and told your child, I am sorry. I'm sorry I was rude. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry that hurt you. I'm not a sage that I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Of course I do. But I know when I'm making a mistake, I am fully aware. But at that point in time, the ego has taken over. The self is not being able to compete with the ego. And I know that I'm doing wrong. But what can I do now? I've just let it go. I've blown the top. I will go back and apologize. So it's not like we don't make mistakes.
I call it, I learned it, not call it. I learned it that's the work of repair, right?
Yeah.
There was a bruise. There was a bit of a bump.
Yeah.
A huge part of us want to just move on and act as if nothing happened because we are uncomfortable to visit that wound.
Yeah.
Now and that so many wounds you leave along the way.
Yeah.
And it still remains. Then how do you heal that wound?
Yeah.
That's called repair. Going back, visiting that uncomfortable place that I'm sorry I hurt you.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that then, but I hurt you.
Yeah.
And then you repair and move on.
It's like, let's assume it's like this coffee cup, right? And you're gonna keep filling it with hate, anger, saying mean things. Kabhi to it'll reach its point where the coffee will start overflowing. So it's not, is it the problem of the milk at the bottom, the sugar at the bottom, a little bit more water that you added, a little bit of froth, a little bit of hazelnut syrup or whatever that you added? It's not the fault of any of these.
But they're all adding up.
It's all adding up, and because you've not got the proportion at the bottom right.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep telling parents that don't make this mistake of not being available or just assuming that your child is wrong all the time. I think children are such sensible individuals. Just give them that
Don't
credit.
get that credit. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
just like I think one, they're born with a very strong intuition. Don't kill it. They're only looking at you and observing, so be very mindful of what they're looking at. And third is just hear them out. They're not always wrong.
Now it's fascinating if I look at it from your lens as a mom. Me being a male and a dad, I know that I have another couple of layers to break through.
What's that?
Which is that same ego, right? That it's very hard for me to emote as a male, right? And a lot of dads, I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire male kind.
Yeah.
But there is an established fact that males experience probably a higher amount of resistance to emote.
Yeah.
And this is emotional work, what you just talked about.
Yeah.
Right? What would you say to dads who are struggling, who know that, yes, I made a mistake, or, he said something really rude to me. I'm not going to go and apologize or whatever. How do you help them break through that?
To not being able to emote is a completely different thing to apologizing. Okay, to not being able to emote is, example, my daughter and I, we'd be like, like how girls are and how women are. Like, we love to cuddle, we love to kiss, we love to do all of that. And, we'll do different sort of jamming together and stuff. And my husband may not, he still does all the cuddles and kisses.
But not every man
can do, and I can understand that.
Sure.
But to not apologize for your mistake is not gender. To not apologize on behalf of what wrong you've done is ego, and you better address it. I do not see my husband Nakul. I do not see him operating out of that place of ego. I do not see him not saying sorry when he's wrong. Like, of course, he loses his school sometimes, and the kids don't like it, and he will say, I am sorry, I should have not done that. maybe not in that moment, which is fair, which is a chance
Yeah,
you give to
which-
all individuals,
absolutely.
that they may not be understanding their mistake in that very moment. But if the kids tell him, Dad, I think you were wrong, or you said something to somebody which was not right, he will say sorry. So ego में कोई gender bias नहीं है.
Right.
Ego is ego.
Yeah, yeah, fair. What do you... I'm going to put you on a bit of a spotlight. What do you learn from him and what does he learn from you?
Oh my God, I feel I'm only learning from him, even though I'm the coach. So
No.
I need to know how to have more fun like he does. Like, I was just talking to somebody, like when he puts the kids to bed and when the kids were much younger, I would be like, this is the New York Times bestseller book and I've got to read it and I've got to do this book is like this, and I would do voice modulation and read. And I'm like, I've got to
Just
get this
following
right,
them, yeah.
right? And he will come up with these random Raju the giraffe
Just mess
stories, right? And I'm like, and the kids would laugh at his jokes more because he's funnier than I am. And it would be like,
And he's not following anything.
he's not
just
following anything. And here I'm doing everything by the book. And I'm like, damn, how does he get this right? And just so many things. Like, I think he just knows how to have fun, right? He's very impulsive. Like, he will... Like, if the kids say, okay, let's do this, he's like, okay, let's do this, right? He will make... I mean, I make enough and more time, but I think he like, if I am stuck between long hours of meetings, I may sometimes forget to call back home because I know they're fine. And I know if something's really pressing, they will call me no matter what. But he will take a lot of time in between flights, in between countries, and at airport. Have you guys slept? Whatever. Like, are you guys okay? He will take a lot of effort. To me, I wish that came more naturally to me. He's just so well read that I wish like I could read as much as him, so I could discuss a lot more things. Like, he is so on point with Netflix and music and all of that,
And
right?
you talk about like his learnings from whatever he's reading with the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Like any subject, and he will give them perspective, or even the music, right? Like, oh my God, they jam so much over the latest trending music, and their Spotify playlists match and mine don't match. And I'm like, why can't I like the music that they like, right? He's the cooler parent to take to a concert. I'm not.
Or maybe they're just learning it from you and they'll realize 20 minutes later.
I'm like, okay, why can't I understand these lyrics? Like, I'm not kidding. When I had to go for the Taylor Swift concert, literally for breakfast, lunch, dinner, I was listening to Taylor Swift, and I'm like, okay, 3 songs done, 5 songs done, 6 songs done, right? But jokes aside, like even on Netflix, like, okay, let's watch this together. He's in tune. He can watch the shows with them. He's...
So you're learning how is he in tune with them?
No, I think I'm just learning how he's more fun and how is he getting so much time to learn about so many diverse things with them and to actually do it. One is to know it, but the other is to take effort to do it with your kids, right? I think, to me, that is really cool.
I think the point here is, a lot of times we just stay in our lanes, and
that's what I said early on.
You don't look at it and it's like, okay, I can learn this here.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And there's like constant sort of just absorbing, sharing happening, and that's how you grow. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I'm soaking up so much from my wife all life long, and I'm hoping she does a little bit of that, to your point as well.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you,
it's not a one-way street like this.
It's about, like I said, we never compartmentalized our roles, and it just came by who's stronger at this, right? And I think we've just played to each other's strengths, which is what great partnership is.
Yeah. Now, just continuing on that same path, right?
You didn't ask me what he would learn from me.
I will come back to that.
Okay.
I'll come back.
There's the long list to that as well.
I will come back to that.
I think he already knew it's a long list, so just skip the question.
Just a sub-bullet point on that point, which is, I know you have girls. And to your point, to your childhood, dads and girls have great bond, right? What influence, how is he shaping girls particularly? Like, what are they, how are they being shaped by particularly his influence? It's a very, very important topic. the influence on daughters from fathers. And I'm kind of curious. I'm studying that. So any thoughts on that?
So what I think...
And then we'll come back to
my long
from you.
list.
Right.
I think this is turning out to be my husband appreciation podcast. I think I've never done it in 13
Nakul,
years.
If you're listening to me.
Yeah, I think I've not done this in 13
I'm
years.
doing you a favor.
Coming. It's all coming now. No, but I think and again, I'll come back to, and I've written this in my book as well, which is, somewhere I can today very proudly say that I think Nakul and my partnership is exactly like how my parents' partnership was. My dad could do our hair. He could pack the dabbas. He would go and drop us. And, my mom would take care of so much of the other things. He would teach us. He was very good in chemistry and math, and he would take up our classes, and my mom would do the rest of the subject. It was a very unspoken partnership, right? Because he was like an MSc in chemistry and, whatever. And he would just love teaching, and he would do that over the weekend. And I feel somewhere, and he would not shy away from... He knew he would come into our doors. He would come in knocking. He never stopped my mom from, from doing anything. Whether she wanted to start working, no questions. Stop working, no questions. What she wanted to wear, how she wanted to wear it, where she wanted to go, where she spent her time. She wasn't answerable. She would obviously say it and they would discuss it, but she wasn't answerable. And to me, as growing up as a child, to see that my mom has a voice was what I absorbed more. And therefore, we have 4 strong girls today.
Yep.
Yeah. And see my dad do all of it, right? Like I said, he would braid our hair, drop us to school, teach us. There was nothing that he didn't do. So to me, there was no divide in the roles that a man and woman could do. Right? He prioritized education, like so on, so that people would say, oh, ladki hai, to, why do you want to educate? Itna sara education, kyun ek bar to, they would get married. In fact, in my book, there was this, there's Captain Shivani Kalra, and, to make her a pilot, her mom broke her gratuity fund to spend that 25 lakhs. And they said in Punjabi that, ladki to ek din byah karke chali jayegi, kyun itne paise kharch kar rahe ho, why you break? And she's like, would I do this for my son? I would. Why would I not do it for my daughter? So I saw that exact same rule run in my family. And today when Nakul and I are raising our daughters, I don't think we're raising them as daughters. We're not raising them to be daughters to be sons. And I think that's the biggest learning. My father didn't raise us to be equal to men. He raised us to be us.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we're doing. We don't need to match with you guys. Who are you?
No.
Like,
you just be who you are. I mean, you become...
You be you.
Yeah.
Right? Which is such a strong belief in our head. Because you may have limitations and factors limiting you.
Sure.
But I need to play to my best abilities, right? Which is something that Nakul and I do with our girls as well. You do whatever you want.
I'm keen on his influence, right? Let's say you watch your daughters and you obviously watch them interact, and you watch your daughters be come on their own. And you're like, wow. I'm glad Nakul's like this. You know what I'm saying? I'm particularly after that point, not to say that, there should be clear divides.
Yeah.
But my curiosity is more on the opportunity that dads have.
Yeah.
To leave that unique imprint on their kids in general, but on daughters in particular.
I think it's going to be the way you treat your wife.
Okay.
And I'll give you a simple example. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'll give you a simple example. It was COVID and we didn't have any help. And, we were literally cooking, cleaning, doing the dishes, all of that, and working and raising the 2 girls. And that's the time when, he's like, I don't like doing the dishes. And I was like, okay, you don't really have a choice. We've got to do it.
Yep.
And the girl stepped in that, if she's going to do it, you're going to do it. And I stood up.
Yep.
I said that I don't want to see my daughters not seeing you do the same work that I do, because I
There
don't
you
want
go.
to set wrong expectations on them that this is my job and this is
There you
yours.
go, yeah.
If I've got to do it and I can manage 900 other things, you've got to do it as well. And I think he was so sensitive about it that he didn't argue. He said, "You're right. Let's do it." Because I knew that, and I think we both knew that we're role modeling
Yeah.
constantly.
This moment may create a wrong
Absolutely.
perception. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's not one moment, you know. It's a sum of so many
course.
moments.
But they're all built of many
will
moments
build,
like this.
They
right.
will build that blueprint in your child's mind forever.
True.
Right? It's about, if I'm going out alone and he's at home, he's checking on me to make sure I'm safe. He's not spying on me.
Sure.
And the same rule applies vice versa. And the same rule applies to our children. So I'm saying it's going to be so many things that you're going to be worried about. Your children are going to be things that you will demonstrate in your life, not knowing that you're role modeling for a
teaching.
situation
Right.
that you haven't reached yet.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really great point of learning, and I relate to that. I mean, I have a son and a daughter, and we both are always trying to be conscious of that. Like to your point, if Neela, my daughter, is doing some chore, I'm always asking, is Neve doing that too?
Yeah.
To the point of like always looking at this equality, which is very
Yeah.
hard to do. But it's a very important question of what daughters are growing up, realizing what their role is in the family.
Yeah.
And is it equally applicable? Is there is there
Yeah.
equal application of that for their brother?
Yeah.
Because if there is an asymmetry,
Yeah.
God knows, like they'll all go in a different direction, right?
yeah.
So
Then
thanks for
we'll just
sharing.
outdo the men.
Yes. No, absolutely. Now let's come back to the point.
Yeah.
What is Nakul learning from you?
Oh, he has a long way to go. But let me cut to the chase. I think it's, again, I think it's just men and women are just wired differently.
Yep.
Like I think women have brilliant organization skills, brilliant multitasking skills, brilliant ability to take multiple instructions at the same time, right? Unfortunately, men don't have that. Like I have to repeat the instructions 210 times, so much so that I find it easier to voice note it. That just do this at this time, do this at this time, so it'll just be easier. So I think just the ability to plan more efficiently.
Yep.
But no, I think one is plan more efficiently, and I think the other would be actually should not become a rant list.
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
it's
should
just,
be a list to just like kind of learn. But no, I think
I mean, I'll tell you. I'll tell
yeah,
you.
yeah,
I definitely learned a lot about having honest conversations with my kids from my wife, right? She doesn't hold back. And I'm always like, is this the right moment? Is this the right time, right place? Which probably is right in some
Yeah.
way. But what that does is I may not have that conversation. I have a difficulty in having difficult conversations.
yeah,
But Vinny, my wife, is not. And I'm picking that up as a learning, and there's some real value to having that hard conversation, no matter how much you are sort of, cringing or, shivering and whatnot. And I learned it from her.
yeah,
It does not come naturally to me.
yeah.
So, I mean, I was kind of going there, in terms of, I mean, of course, it's unfair to ask you that question.
No, but
I'd rather ask him the question.
I think women inherently we're wired to multitask and wired to manage a lot at one point in time. So I think that
I attest to that.
yeah, I think like I can manage so many things with a well orchestrated plan, which I think is something he can definitely learn. I don't see a very bright future there, but I think he can attempt it. But I think even just the ability to kind of pick and choose his battle sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I think I do a lot of that. I mean, I'm like, so what? She's going to do this. It's okay. And I tell him, Nakul, look at the bigger picture.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I can get very micro. So I think there's a long way to go, but I keep telling him, look at the bigger picture sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You can choose your battles. I think most couples sort of disagree on things, and that's try to disagree on everything. You may not need to. As parents, we need to agree on some things.
Yeah.
And I think automatically what happens is, when you're in that, my ability to put pieces together, because I'm more involved, I'm more micro and like almost like a detective sometimes. I can put
Right.
things together much easily in terms of, okay, she said this. And anyways, I think women are more intuitive to that. So I think that becomes interesting. But I think otherwise, I think I have a longer list of things to learn from him than he has from me, I think.
I'm sure he'll say the same thing if I ask him. That's good.
I am very sure he's going to say that. And he's going to be so happy that his list is quite small.
Now, let's continue to kind of go in that sort of path of having these conversations, right? One of the things that I know I'm living there for sure is having one teenage son and a daughter who's 10, is having conversations which are kind of difficult, right? Like, for example, body consciousness, right? It's a big topic in boys and girls both. Physical relationships, consent, right? Sex.
Yeah.
How are you approaching these conversations, and what, how do you, both of you, kind of navigate some of these conversations just for other parents to, just spark their thoughts?
Yeah. So I think, again, role modeling all the way. Like I said, you're not role modeling for today.
Right.
You're not role modeling for tomorrow. You're role modeling for a longer path ahead, right? And for situations that will come, you just don't know when. So with regards to whether it's body consciousness or consent, we've never spoken about, and again, it comes from you as a child, you today.
True.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like I've always been very comfortable with who I am, what I am wearing, what I have.
Yep.
And I find parents finding that such a struggle. They find it so hard to have money conversations. More than all of these, they find it a struggle to have money conversations with their kids.
As well.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, this is what we can afford. This is not what we can afford. I don't think you need this. I don't think I want to indulge in buying this. Or I'm happy to give you this.
Sure.
Right? So again, being comfortable in your ability and being in who you are will solve a large part of these problems.
So it's your own comfort with these topics.
Absolutely.
Right.
So for us, whether it's body consciousness, I've never spoken about the body's ability to be thin or fat, tall or short or any of that. It's the body's ability to do. To do is live a healthy life, being able to do your daily chores, being able to help others, being able to live with your own expectations of how you want to be, right? That's what the role of the body is, right? And the importance of it as well. So they see me not looking like this without going to the gym or working out every single day for the last 25 years. So that's what they are seeing. They're seeing that there is effort and there's result. Right? And that is, and being comfortable that yes, this is my body at 20, this is my body at 30, this is my body at 40.
Right.
And being totally comfortable about it. With, say, consent, again, they see your body language. See, today also our kids, we're going on holidays together with friends and with other couples and, with constantly being surrounded with a lot of attention.
Right.
They see you as a woman behave how you are with other men, or with men, how you are with other women, how is that relationship, or what are the boundaries, right? That, somebody is touching you inappropriately and what did you take action of? What are the boundaries of inappropriateness? That is something you decide as a family. Because your normal may be very different from mine.
And that decision has to be spoken about though, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you say it in very, very opportune moments. They've seen it because they're going, today, like you're going out with the same couples or the same families who you start becoming friends with since kindergarten, and then you continue to hang out with them till your child is 16, right? They're constantly watching. They're watching what you're doing. They're behaving. They're seeing how you're behaving. What is comfort for you? What is discomfort for you? Right? And there may be times when you even speak about that. I think I didn't like the way somebody touched me. And you speak about it.
Right.
You speak about it.
Right.
Right? And like when we have family time in the night where we're putting the kids to bed, and, we say, I didn't like this about this one. Or I think this was this, and that's when they share that, I feel uncomfortable about this. And I constantly keep telling parents, please listen to your children. Because like I said, they're born with a very strong intuition. And I know that sometimes kids say that, oh, I don't want to come out and meet that uncle. Or I don't want to come out and meet that, that relative or whatever. Listen to them.
That, yeah.
We all have, especially girls, we have a very strong sixth sense.
True.
And if you don't respect that, then you're losing out on a very important moment with your child, because your child is guiding you in the right light and you're just dismissing that.
And she's saying something and she's also not saying something.
Yes.
You need to pick up on both, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I always say that, just, and I don't dismiss that off. Even with my 12 or my 16-year-old, there are boundaries and there are rules, right? Like if they're going out with friends, there's a certain dress code. If they're going out with house help or drivers, there's a certain dress code. If you're going out with relatives, there's going to be a certain dress code. Not because it's forbidden.
Right.
It's just going to keep you safe. Because we're not living in this cocoon of this flat that we are staying.
Right.
We're staying in a society. In the society, we need to keep you safe in the society in its current avatar. Do we want the society to reform? Yes, we do.
Of course we do, yeah.
But till it reforms, we want to play it safe by saying, okay, when you are unaccompanied, this is how I'd like you to dress up, right? And that's just for safety. It's not like we're saying that's blanket rule for all places.
Right.
But I think those are very conversations we have very, very early on. Maybe as young as my daughters, I think we're 6 and 7. We're like, okay, when you go for class, we'd not appreciate if you wear shorts. Okay, if you're going for a gymnastics class, it's different. Or you're going for a sports class, I understand. But if you're going to a teacher coming home, we'd like if you'd wear full pants. So yes, consent comes in, and have that conversation. Don't ignore that conversation.
Right. I think that's the takeaway.
That's the absolute takeaway. What were the other points? Physical, what?
Yeah, I mean, physical relationships, consent, right?
Even if it's physical relationships, right? I mean, my daughter's 16, and though I don't think there is any rule book to it, but we always tell her that, and I think you will never know what they're going to do. You're never going to be able to predict it.
Yeah.
But you always share with them your experiences.
Yeah.
You share with them about, what the do's and don'ts in a digital space are, right? Because I think when we were growing up, we didn't have that, right? So I keep telling her that whatever you do, however you may be, and let's face it, they're 16 and the hormones are raging and they want to be in a relationship.
Absolutely.
Being in a relationship is the most beautiful,
wonderful thing,
feeling one can have. But I always keep telling them, and I keep telling every parent, and I speak to a lot of children, I do a lot of teen workshops, that just make sure that you don't walk on a path that you can't erase, right? Don't take pictures, don't document it, don't kind of leave a digital footprint behind that you may regret it. And sometimes somebody may ask you in exchange of, right? And if that ever happens, there's only one person that you go to first, which is your parents, because nobody thinks of you the way your parents do.
Yep.
Nobody else in the world will give you the advice and think on your behalf unconditionally like your parents will do. So if you've screwed up, go and say that, I've screwed up. I've made a mess. I don't know what to do. Because that's what parents are for, right? To pick you out of that mess and help you.
Yeah, I think all these points that you talked about throughout this last, so several minutes of these moments, teachings, bond, trust, all that will sort of let them have that comfort and trust that I'm going to go to my mom and dad and say, I screwed up. That's what you hope you have done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leave enough trust with them that they can come to you, right?
Yeah, I keep telling her, even right now when she goes out, I keep telling her that, I want you to share your location because I want you to be safe. I need to know where you are, that if shit hits the roof, I can come and pick you up, right? I don't need to spy on you. I'm not going to keep tracking that location every hour or 30 minutes or see what is around. I was like, I just need to know sometimes. And it's such a a happy moment for me the other day when I was actually traveling. I was in Delhi and she'd gone out, and it didn't even strike me that she's going out and she needs to share her location. And I finished that conference and I saw on our family group that she had shared the location, and I was sitting in the car and smiling.
That's
I
beautiful.
didn't ask for it. It just came so intuitively to her. And I keep telling her that, what, I am always there to drop you and pick you up no matter where you are. Anybody, any problem, just call Dad and me, we'll come and pick you up and we'll rescue you from wherever you are.
Right.
So for her to have that faith, to have that blanket of security,
Yeah.
that these people will salvage me from any shit,
Yeah.
I think is a
It's a
feeling,
great comfort. Yeah.
is just great comfort.
Yeah. I agree. I 100% agree. I'm literally trying. I'm on that mission.
But you can't
until-
get there if you haven't worked your way up.
Precisely, which is
You
exactly.
can't. So if
you
you
just
are
can't produce
thinking-
overnight.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
are thinking, acha, now my kid is 15 and now I need to build relation. I get so many of those parents in my sessions where they're like, okay, my child doesn't talk to me. I don't know what to talk to my child. Okay, he's 15, he doesn't tell me anything. My daughter's 15, she just shuts the room. पर 15 साल आपने क्या किया है?
Yeah.
You came home looking at the phone, or you came busy, or you did something else. You didn't have time for your child. Don't expect your children to turn around immediately and say, okay, let's have a talk.
Yeah.
Let's
Agreed.
chat. Or you be your closest friend. I have worked my way through 15 years. I've made enough and more mistakes. I've said sorry.
them.
Things are random. Things may still go astray, but I'm consciously working towards it.
It's a daily routine. It's a lifelong routine.
Yeah,
you
once
can't
a
just
parent,
produce- yeah.
always a
Yeah,
parent.
yeah. Thank you. This is really, really strong takeaways. Thank you for that. I think we will kind of flip to another topic and then we'll start to wind down, which is on your going back to your parenting work in your sort of professional work in the parenting space. How do you react when, I'm sure, like you said, we all have strong opinions, and one of the things that comes with the territory that you have opinions and you share with the world. I'm pretty sure that you don't get complete alignment and agreement to all your thoughts.
Yeah.
You get strong reactions sometimes, very negative reactions. How do you handle that?
So I'll be honest, I have never faced a lot of negatives in my
Your journey?
journey, and I'm very blessed for that. And people should have opinions. I cannot be the only one to have an opinion.
Agreed.
Let's understand there's a difference between opinion and judgment. Okay,
Correct.
judgment is when I don't want to listen to you and I already
Yeah.
judge.
I've already kind of made up my
you
mind.
already have that.
Right.
I don't have that. I don't judge anybody. It's not right of me to judge because you come from a place with dealing with what you have, right? And you played the best of your ability. So I cannot judge you because I don't have the same cards. So how can we play the same hand?
Right.
So it's very unfair of me to judge you, right? But to have an opinion, everybody is entitled.
Sure.
I have put myself in the public, fully aware that people will have an opinion. So it's a conscious decision. Then how can I shy away from it,
Right.
right? But having said that, like I said, coming back to judgment, I don't judge because, in fact, I feel I have so much to learn, and I'm always happy if it's critical feedback, right?
That's what I was going to go. I mean, there's probably a moment of
Absolutely.
learning there, right?
There's always learning. There's
Right.
always opportunity to learn. Like a simple thing, like, I was in this, public teen safety policy with the Meta team, and we had so many different stakeholders, educators, NGOs, etc. And these are a very interesting thing. And we were talking about teen safety, and we were talking about all the tools and all of that. And somebody said, but in so many households, they don't even have a separate device. And I was like, you're absolutely right, because kisi ke ghar mein, the child must be the first one to have a smartphone.
Right.
So how can the parent supervise, right? 95% के माँ बाप तो they don't even know what their child is doing on the phone.
Right.
They probably have a feature phone, and the child is the first one in the family to have a smartphone. And I was like, Mansi, unlearn. Learn and unlearn, because you have to
What
also...
was the unlearning for you?
The unlearning for me is that what I am assuming is not the normal for so many different families, right? Of having, okay, we can have this safety feature, we can have this safety feature, but in so many families it may be a shared device. So how does it actually work? Because then you're problem solving for something completely different, right? So I never assume. Like, even when I speak to so many moms in so many different cities, and I've traveled to close to 15 cities this year in India, the family that I come from, the ecosystem that I come from, where everybody is so broad-minded, that is not 99.9% of India's reality.
No,
There are so many Indias within India, and to adapt and embrace every India and every woman's story, and I'm saying women largely because they are the primary caretakers, adopt and understand their story and help them with their unique problem is what learning and unlearning is. It's to not assume that I'm base case scenario. I'm never base case scenario. I am a very, very privileged scenario.
Yeah. You have to keep sort of being very, very aware of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last few questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to describe motherhood in 3 words, how would you describe?
Tough one. Selfless. A lot of work.
True.
And I think most gratifying. I think it's the best role I've ever played and continue to play.
Oh, that's definitely heartwarming. Thank you. What message would you like to give to all the dads out there, all the fathers out there who are willing to play a bigger role but are not able to, for whatever reasons, they're holding themselves back?
Just do it, because your children are going to be children for very little time. And I keep saying this, you only have 16 summers before they're gone. अगर आपको लगता है आप ये बाद में करेंगे, that बाद में just never comes. अभी जो है वो ही है, वो ही है. Right? Just be in that moment. And I keep telling this, when I quit my job, you are a 30-day replacement policy in your company. But you're a lifetime no replacement in your family. So prioritize your children, prioritize your family, because like, think of it. You've quit your job. When I quit, I knew I could be replaced in 30 days.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And you're going to regret not being with your son, being with your daughter, just playing a game of cricket, watching. Like, again, when I go back to my childhood, the love that I have for sports and especially tennis, my dad and me have watched every single Wimbledon, every single US Open, every single French Open. And my love for tennis, and today I play the game, has only come out of watching that with my father.
Relate to that.
And if you ask me what's the best gift he gave me, I can't name one material thing. I just can't. But I can name so many invaluable moments. So don't think you have forever, especially today, because life is random, life is fragile, and you don't have time. You just don't have enough time with them. So I want to just grab all that I can before they're I already feel it. I already feel like my daughter's 16 and I'm not her top priority. And I wish, I'm holding on to my little one. She's 12 and she's like, Mom. And I'm like, okay, this is all I have. This is all I have.
This is what I'm left with now.
But just embrace the now. You don't have tomorrow. Assume you have no tomorrow.
Thank you for that, Mansi. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have met you and learned so much from you. Thank you for doing the work you've been doing for the last 11 years. It's incredible work. The gifts that you are giving to people, maybe you're not counting them, but I know who they are. I mean, I'm sure they know who they are, like the example you gave of that gentleman who took a walk with his dad. Thank you for doing that work. You're changing a lot of lives, and I'm grateful for having met you and having had this conversation, and I hope it's not the last.
Yes, I am hoping so too, and thank you for putting my husband on a little bit of a limelight. I'm sure he's loving it. Finally, somebody is speaking about dads.
Wow.
So
I think he might be my next guest.
if that one's going to be a better, I'm sure that one's going to do a lot better than the rankings for this one, because he'll add a lot of fun.
That'll be interesting, right? Thank you, Mansi.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over, and this was a blast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.